institutions with a very small population as compared to the rest of the country. The current federal funding distribution puts students who choose to study in Nova Scotia at a disadvantage, and if elected, what solutions, if any, would your party make to address this issue? Perhaps you could go into maybe some detail on whether or not you would support a per-student transfer as opposed to a per capita transfer.
That's the last question.
It's a good one. One of the things is, every time I've been in Nova Scotia the last 4 years, I've been asked a variant of that question. Because of the fact that Atlantic Canada, and Nova Scotia in particular, has world-class post-secondary education, and you draw students from other provinces. But the province doesn't get paid for it. So then the issue is, should the money follow the student? And if you follow the logic of that, at first sight it's absolutely the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, I will still say it's the right thing to do. But it creates substantial tensions in the Federation, because it rewards successful institutions, and less successful ones may think, hey, we're being left behind. What happens to our funding if all the students come to Dal and they don't come to some other university somewhere else? So that's the political problem. The issue is whether you can use federal funding basically to create a competitive market for students in the Canadian Federation without damaging the requirement that we have good post-secondary right across the country, right? This is the balance that we have to strike. I like the idea of rewarding success and incentivizing success. If students are voting with their feet and saying, I want to go to Dal, and I understand that very substantial numbers of, say, the Dal population come from Ontario, for example, and other provinces. This seems to be a good thing. But if you're going to do that, you've got to be careful that you don't leave a whole bunch of other institutions out in the cold, right? Because they're there, and you want to sustain them as well. So it's getting that balance that's right. But when I think about it, I still like the idea of keep creating this market so we reward success. I just don't want to punish failure so that we have a lot of other institutions drying up as a result of Dal doing such a good job. You see what the issue is. That's the point. There's one wider implication of this that I want to draw out, and then I'll shut up. And that is that when I began teaching at the University of British Columbia, when I was a young instructor in the Middle Ages, right? One of the things I noticed about teaching undergraduate Canadian history was that almost all of my class was from British Columbia. And I came out there with my fancy Harvard PhD, and I began to teach what I thought was Canadian history. Only it was basically a history of Canada that ended at Lake Superior. Right? And they thought, what is this? This is not, So I had to learn what it means to create a national experience in the Canadian classroom. I had to reinvent the Canadian history I taught so that it would be relevant to British Columbians. But I had one other experience there, which is I had a couple of Quebecois who ended up at UBC in as I say, in the Middle Ages. And they completely transformed my experience of that classroom. Because needless to say, their experience of Canadian history was radically different from those British Columbia students. And I learned firsthand how important it is to create a Canadian experience in a Canadian classroom, as opposed to a provincial, as opposed to a regional experience. So one of the things you want to do is to create a way to incentivize starting your undergraduate career at UBC and completing it at Dal, or starting your undergraduate career at Dal and completing it at UBC, or starting your undergraduate career at Laval and completing it at the University of Calgary. And it would be great, I don't quite know how we do it, to incentivize that. Because what you want to create in Canada is a national experience. A sense that you're proud Nova Scotians, you're proud Ontarians, you're proud British Columbians, but you're also Canadian and you have the experience of being Canadian. And you've lived the experience of talking about your country with people from all across the country. Because let me tell you, talking about Canadian history with two Quebecois in the room is a different experience than not having Quebecois. And it's a richer, better, stronger experience. and it creates richer, better citizens. And that's why I'll end it. I mean, when you think about what is the purpose of Canadian politics, it is to strengthen the national unity as a lived human experience. And so when we do post-secondary education policy, the big goal here is to strengthen the unity of our country and strengthen the feeling and affection and love we have for the institutions and for the country we share. And if that's the driver, then you do policy different. That's my point. Thank you so much for listening to me this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Really quickly, my name is Glenn Kruger. I'm the president of the Dalhousie Liberals. We'd like to thank Mr. Ignatieff for coming and speaking to us today. We have a few parting gifts for you. We have a Dalhousie t-shirt for you, sir. And more importantly, we know your job is very stressful. Many thanks to Stephen Harper. We have a 12-pack of Keiths for you, so you can celebrate the Nova Scotia right there. Thank you very much.
Can I just say one of the great things about being in politics are the presents you get. This is just about the best present I've had in a long time.